Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to this month's Instant Insight webinar brought to you by Aura SI's Learning Services. Jonathan Reddish and Jim Cook will be speaking today about how to get the most out of your UC/CC systems from the Aura SI perspective. Just a few notes as we go through the presentation. All lines are now on mute. If you do have a question, you have the option to put it in the question chat box, and we'll get to as many questions as possible. With that said, Jonathan, I will hand the line over to you.
Thank you very much. Welcome everyone to the spring cleaning webinar, getting the most out of your UC and CC systems. My name is Jonathan Reddish, and I'm joined by my colleague, Jim Cook, to talk to you about what your businesses can do to get a holistic view of your telecommunications environment and what that means for your business. Imagine you're a new CIO and have very little information regarding your company's communications. And unfortunately, the documentation of your systems by your staff has never really taken off or is so outdated it is of little use at all. At the basics, you know you inherited an older set of systems and your company needs to evaluate options for upgrading or replacing the environment. Going to a third-party system seems like a logical way to ensure you get a clear picture without overburdening your staff and more comprehensive assessment. We would conduct a rapid assessment of those systems and create a business case to support whichever upgrade path would contain the best return on investment and approach for the company. We would deliver, as listed, the business IT telecom systems assessment, as well as recommendations to move forward in this case, and the vendor-independent detailed communication specification. So let's turn our attention to another hypothetical. Now you're a telecom director creating RFPs for session border controllers and SIP carriers. Aura SI's advisory approach is to leverage the outstanding SBC and SIP experience that we have on staff to evaluate those RFPs. This process gives an objective look of what your business needs are and what vendors best suit those needs. Additionally, this takes a good deal of time and effort out of your busy schedule so that you can continue the day-to-day administration of your systems. And we would deliver the detailed specifications of that content, and as well as checklist recommendations, and make sure that everything is apples to apples in terms of evaluation. Then a detailed scope of work that would detail the recommended approach and proof of concept implementation for those RFPs. So now a different telecom director, attempting to do a flat and consolidate of acquired contact centers. You're under constant pressure from upper management to push a plan forward, but the problem is you're consistently putting out fires in your current environment and don't have time for this planning. On top of that, you can't get your staff to propel the discussion further. The process would be to hold a planning session about the future vision of the environment and business needs. Then perform an analysis of each contact center from agent processes, supporting equipment, and business processes to design the future environment. Using that design, we approach vendors to formulate the proper mix of systems for your future FCE. This would deliver a full SOW detailing all that design implementation steps and resources needed to execute it, which can also be done. Now, what does this mean? What business problems does this cover? First things first, you need to know your current environment. This is where spring cleaning starts to come into play. So many systems were set up long ago, and newer staff have moved into companies where they just assume that the way they operate is fine simply because that's the way it's always been around, and that's the way it was put in. Large amounts of unneeded programming or inefficient programming also plague these systems, and we must uncover all of this to set a valid baseline for your enterprise. Telecom staff are typically under fire with limited resources to take the time out to do a holistic study. Additionally, they can get caught in silos of thought or groupthink, possibly ignoring valid solutions. Another common issue is simple lack of expertise. Acquisitions and mergers and layoffs can quickly eliminate staff members that know the systems, leaving the rest of you to figure it out. The lack of knowledge can turn into unreliable outcomes. On top of all that, the stakeholders, the rest of the company outside of IT telecom, can have a large disconnect in what they need for operational excellence, or IT telecom doesn't properly design around the rest of the business, and the reverse. The rest of the business makes inefficient telecom or IT requests. So what are the benefits of using a holistic approach? How do we solve these issues? We need clarity to discover your systems and a process to get the holistic viewpoint started, allowing us to create plans with measurable results. A subset of tools, proprietary and external, and a subject matter expert to assist in all these engagements to provide the necessary insight into industry best practices for your business. Engagements are unique to every company with a structure and process to evaluate each situation while maintaining a track record of excellence. Just to get further into what the tool set is, it's just an example. I know it's small print here, but these are meant for explanation rather than reading. On the left, we see network regions map of an Avaya CM in this case, which we use to visually determine if you're in best practice spoken wheel model of regions design, where it more closely resembles your actual WAN topology. It's a good visual of how to use intervening network regions. So the region in the middle of that spoken wheel would be the primary intervening network region. Now we've come into places and you'll see all these maps all over the place. And if they're not in the proper model, it could indicate that there is some unneeded programming or poor planning and programming for routing of calls and network region assignment. On the right is a general simple gateway map we use to construct embedded data sets for each gateway, giving you a one-stop shop for information, and a base design for additional mapping if you want to expand it or you have a lack of mapping today. And what I mean by embedded data, if you're not familiar with the Visio process, the shape data of each of those little gateways, you can click on it when it's loaded in Visio, and it will display every single piece of information about that particular gateway. So that's what I mean when I say one-stop shop. I've seen many people start with the base design and then add it to more closely match the total WAN infrastructure with all of the data sets included. This is just another example of a visual representation of a vector. This is a Visio set as well. I've found many business people love these charts to explain call flows, where the technical staff that do the actual programming tend to like the conditional formatting they see inside the system. This is a great visual tool when having to review call flows in general, and the tool set will detect endless looping vectors and self-referencing vectors for review in case they're bad programming or are just out of sync with the rest. All of these visuals are included in what we would do as a health check, in addition to the documentation recommendations and a rather large Excel workbook that contains hard data sets from your systems, which would be used to make the analysis possible. I wouldn't want to go through that large data set at this point, but you get the picture of the drift of where it's coming from. So we are systems integrators, and what that means is we bring business cases, processes, and needs to the forefront of IT telecom decisions. IT telecom cannot operate in a vacuum, so we ensure that both the technology needs and the business justice. We do this through our methodology and leveraging our internal systems and expertise. To the business IT telecom, to the business IT telecom processes can seem like a non-critical cost, of course, until it breaks. Positioning all investments in these systems as assets to the business objectives that produce a tangible ROI is a must. The services and functions provided by IT telecom must be married to the overall strategy of the business. We provide the cases and analysis to evaluate this. Total cost of ownership is a big deal when creating these cases, just as much as ROI and the effect on the business units and process improvement all have to be in place in this type of evaluation. The strategic value of this ability to plan your company's future vision today and be ahead of the curve instead of playing catch-up, all of which is unique to your specific industry and situation. One size does not fit all. So this is a basic representation of simply an Avaya Aura version of the HealthCheck. Main points here are that it's an accurate assessment using data to reflecting the true performance and resource needs of that environment. And it's a fact-based foundation to manage the systems going forward or to repair them if need be. And then relevant pragmatic recommendations based on what Arrow SI finds as best practice and commonplace and what the manufacturer does as well. This is a general health check, so not Avaya Aura related. It could be any system, Go, Mitel, any of the others. It's essentially the same process as one we would do for Avaya Aura, but it's much more expanded out. You can have, these engagements are very unique, and all of the recommendations align to your enterprise for best practices. And spring cleaning of your environments, which is the whole point, is you don't know what you don't know. You have to be able to uncover what's in these systems today in order to execute any kind of positive return on programming and efficiency gains. And just to follow that up, enterprise services in general, this is all the whole big basket of items, evaluations, recommendations, and design and implementation services that can be brought to bear when you have already started your spring cleaning process and you've discovered the needs within your own business so that you can extract some value out of it. This kind of would be the next step, and my next slide actually explains this fairly well. So this is a visual of the concept that I'm going through of starting with the process towards realizing what a transformed enterprise can be. Analysis using spring cleaning starting point where, say, a health check would begin. Then we would move towards design of upgrade and new systems or business processes. Then we spec out the design with vendors to ensure that the proper mix of applications and systems for the cost and purpose is there. And using all that information, we construct a plan around the business and its decided upon approach to move forward, such as phased rollouts or flash cutovers, depending on the situation. Finally, we implement all of that data-driven design and planning to transform the enterprise and prepare for the future. This all takes place in a process that goes through, and this is the overall idea and concept of where we would all want to take our enterprises to transform not only what we do in technology, but a lot of the business processes that we go through that have soft targets, like agent processes, things as simple as how they are managing the call volume and things of that nature, not necessarily technology strictly. Now, thank you for listening. I am going to turn it over to Jim, who will talk on further.
Good morning. My name is Jim Cook. I'm part of the professional services leg of the Avaya, or the Arrow SI call center. Today I'm going to talk about what we call a call center tune-up. Jonathan explained that we can do business, IT, telecom, and then also a call center tune-up. What I would like to do is discuss the call center tune-up. As you well know, Avaya has two different processors. They have an Avaya Blue, which we're going to call the AACC, and they also have a call center Red, which is the Elite Call Center. Even though our professional services organization can do a tune-up on both of them, I'm going to focus today on the Avaya Red, even though we can do both of them. What is going on with my screen here? 1 second, a little problem with my screen not moving. There we go. Okay, so let's talk about cleaning up the call center. What is the avenue that we will do this? We're going to talk about the routing. What are the elements? Even though the Avaya Red has many features, I'm going to discuss the 4 main elements, which is the vector directory number, the vectors, the hunt groups, and the agent ID, and then we're going to briefly get into the call management system. So what happens? We know that you are all different customers with different industries. You may be financial, medical, insurance, different types of technology. We want to learn about you and about your customers. So we want to know what you can tell us about your customers. Are they a revenue producing for you? What kind of priority you want to have on them? And then how do you want to serve them? With the most skilled agent, with just any agent, a mid-tier agent, or do you want to use a self-service to help you service them? And then once that call comes in, how do you want to serve that customer? Do you want them immediately to go? Do you want them to hear some sort of announcement that tells a little bit about your new processes? These are the different things that we will come out and discuss with you, and then we will design your tune-up to meet your needs. So let's talk about the flow. Basically, calls come in and they arrive. They can come in over a SIP trunk. They can come in over ISDN, a local DID trunk. You could have some sort of internal dialing within your system. You could have an IVR that prompts and then sends the calls in there. When those calls come in, they come into what we call a vector directory number. These are pointer numbers, and they will then point to what we call vectors. These vectors are if-then statements that process the calls with whatever needs that you have with your business. Do you want them to hear the announcements? Do you want them to hear all calls will be monitored? Different things like that, and we'll step into vectoring in a minute. Then those calls will go to a skill or a hunt group, which are based by whatever you want those skills to be. Are you an insurance company, and each skill or hunt group is based on the state that you handle, and obviously the way to get calls is you want them to go to an agent. So what is a vector directory number? It's a soft number. It could be 3 digits, could be 13 digits. You could have over 20,000 of them within your system. And the reason a VDN is important is because when we look back here, it's where your flow starts. So it's the start of the call center process. Also, when a call comes into an agent, the digital display on the Avaya phones will see, my number, the word to, and then the VDN name. This helps the agent answer the call because they may be in multiple different skills, and they may be Spanish speaking or French or English, and it helps them answer the call. And then it's the total customer experience when you look at your reports. A VDN, as you can see here, will have an extension number. The name is there. It will always go to a vector. You will also see that it has a measurement, internal, which would be your BCMS, external, meaning your CMS, and both is for both of them. On the third page, if you look over here on the far right-hand side, we have what we call VDN variables. And we can have a description. So if this VDN and the name of it is the on-call engineer, we can describe the on-call engineer and the assignment to that engineer within the VDN. Also on the VDN, you can see that we have a time zone offset. Let's say that you have your main communication manager in Omaha, but you also have a G450, G650 in Denver. The VDN for this one is a Denver VDN, so you're going to want an offset. You also have daylight savings rules for these VDNs. They go into a vector. A vector is basically an if-then statement. If it is after 6 p.m. and before 8 a.m., take it to an announcement that says our hours of operation are 8 to 6. Please call back at that time. Or let's just say you can have it for it's a holiday, or the expected wait time for your call is greater than 5 minutes. These are the things that we do within the vector. We talk to you and say, okay, what's important to you? How do you want these calls to flow? When I do vectoring, I have 5 steps, or a minimum of 4, but 5 steps that I look at. The first thing I look at is it a holiday? I don't want callers to come in and hear ringing and announcements, or you could be answered if it's a holiday. I want to shed that call off right away. Same thing with your time of day. I'm going to shed that call off because the hours of operation, I don't want the customer to experience anything except for we're closed. Do we have an emergency button? Have we programmed for you a button that would say, okay, we're having an emergency situation. Where do you want these calls to go? Also, for the different groups, we can set up different meeting steps that says, okay, what do you want to happen when this group is having a meeting? Do we have another group that can take these calls? Or do you just want them to go to an announcement that say, we're at a meeting from 2 to 3 today, please call back? And the last thing is, do we have staffed agents? Do we have a physical agent that is there to answer a call? Most of the time, if like over the last 3 days, I live in Denver, and we had 24 to 40 inches of snow in here. There were probably some call centers that their agents could not make it to work. So we would take that into consideration. If there's no staffed agents, take the call to either an off-site location or to a voicemail, something like that. I did have a customer, and they said that they didn't want their customers to know that there wasn't a staffed agent, so go ahead and queue the call. That's not one of my recommendations, but we will always give you what you want. And the goal of vectoring is to eventually what we call queue the call, get it to a hunt group, get it to a group of agents that can handle that type of call. Let's get an example on here is in the insurance business, you will certify by state. So my hunt group is Colorado. Then I take a test and I will apply for my Nebraska license. Now I can take calls from Nebraska or Colorado. Again, this is important that the VDM will tell me how to answer that call. I will say, thank you for calling the Colorado Insurance Company. And eventually, obviously, the hunt group is supplied by your agents. And what we have in the Avaya Red is expert agent. This is a 3 to 7 digit number that when an agent comes to work, they can log in from any phone on the system and put in their agent ID, and then their calls find them. So that's important that you have the agent IDs and you have the skills there. What we have to know about the Avaya Red system is I've just mentioned several features, the VDN, the vector, the hunt group, and the agent IDs. There are a lot of features that go into the Avaya Red call center. Whether you have your system as a communication manager 3.0 or a 5.2 or a 6.3 or even the new 7.0, you're going to have different features or more features. Avaya has taken into consideration that they are going to garner the call center market and keep adding features. So as a customer and you have something that you don't see on the Avaya system, there is a process to turn in information as to something that you would like to see on the communication manager. One of the things that gets me in trouble a lot with the account executives is I will say there is no reason to have a call center or pay for the call center features if you're not going to measure it. The most important thing that you have is your measurements. This is where you prove that, oh gosh, you know, we're not answering enough calls for our customers, and the way to prove that is that you don't have enough agents in a particular group to answer the calls. So the flagship product is obviously our call management system. Our call management system can measure the agents, the agent groups, the skill groups, BDNs, vectors. It has historical, real-time agent traceabilities, exception reports. There is even a wizard for you to do some custom writing. It also will allow you to hook up to wall boards, and there is also high availability redundancy. When you look at the call management system, and a call management system can have 62 days of interval data. Interval data is your half-hour, hourly data per day, and so you can have that data for 62 days, and also you can see that it's 5 days of daily, 10 years of monthly, and 10 years of weekly. What you will have as a manager of the business or a supervisor is this GUI interface we're going to call CMS Supervisor. CMS Supervisor allows you to manage your call center system. As you can see to the right there, you can have, I usually give up to 10 windows to all my supervisors and managers so they can have multiple screens open up so that they can equitably manage their systems. If you look at the left-hand side, this is a real-time report. It's a graphical one. A little hard to see, but on the far left-hand side, it gives you an icon of what that agent is doing. If it's a phone, they're on an ACD call. If it's a coffee cup, they're in the aux work mode. You can also see the red and the yellow there under the time. These are thresholds that you can set by individual supervisor to say, okay, if an agent is in whatever mode for a certain amount of time, I want to be alerted, and that would be a yellow. Or I want to know, or we have exceeded a time frame where an agent has been on an ACD call longer than I would like them to be. At any time, you can double-click on any of the names, and a new window will come up, and we look on the right-hand side where we see an agent, and it will give all the information for this agent within this half hour or hour that we are doing this real-time report. The other thing that is really handy that we have within the communication CMS is we can move agents. So let's just say that our English group is getting inundated with calls, and we have Spanish-speaking people that can take also English-speaking calls. I can come here with a click of the mouse, highlight the Spanish-speaking agents, and then add them to the group that we want them to help answer. Once the problem with the number of calls have subsided, you can come back and delete that skill from that agent's portfolio. So let's talk about the tune-up, what we have here. We have features. We have a lot of features. When you look at your customer options, these are what you paid for. We're going to look at those, as I said before, depending on what communication manager you have. You may have more features that either A, for some reason were not turned on for you, or B, they are turned on and you're not using them. We're going to take a look at those. We're going to do an evaluation of the hunt groups. Are you using the hunt groups to effectively give you everything that you need? Do you have a threshold set on your queue lights? Are you using a timed after call work feature? Are you using the redirect on no answer? Are you using it correctly? I find a lot of customers have it turned on with a number of rings, but they don't have a VDN there, and so they're not equitably using this feature. Under the VDNs, we have the names. We want to make sure that the VDN name is appropriate so that when the agent sees those VDN names, they know how to answer the call. Are you using the VDN variables? Are they helpful to you? On the vectors, are you using all of the functionality of the vectors? There are a lot of features that came out with the different communication managers. They added vector steps that some people didn't even know they have. Are you using the positioning queue? Do you want to use the calls for staffed agents, number of calls in queue, move calls back and forth? And then how are you using your agents? Are you properly using their levels? An agent can be in up to 120 different skills with 16 different priority levels. Are you using those properly? And then when we get to the call management system, have you gone to your dictionary lately and cleaned that up? Are you using agent groups? What kind of thresholds do you have? Have you set exception reports? Are you using those for you that will allow the supervisors to be alerted? You know, these are all important things. And I think that's it. Do we have any questions? Kelly.
Hi. No, we don't have any questions at this time, but I encourage you that if you do have a question, please type it in the chat box. Just in the meantime, we'll give everyone a few minutes if they want to add in a question. But I just want to thank our presenters today, Jonathan and Jim. Thank you very much, and I thank you all for attending. Please check back with us next month. We will be hosting a webinar on May 19th at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Our expert, Andrew Prokop, will be discussing WebRTC for beginners, so I hope you all can join us then. I don't think we have any more questions, so that will actually be the conclusion of our webinar today, and we will be sending out the copy of the slides and presentation from today, and thank you all for joining.